I'm a 34 internal medicine physician. Been married to Emily, 31, for 3 years. I never thought I'd be writing something like this on Reddit of all places, but I need advice because I'm losing my mind trying to process what's happening. For context, I work at a mid-sized hospital in Phoenix. My patient load runs about 80 to 90 patients split between hospital rounds and outpatient clinic. It's demanding, but I genuinely care about my patients' well-being, which makes what I'm about to tell you even more messed up. One of my regular patients is Victor Ramirez. He's been seeing me for about 8 months for HIV care. He was diagnosed 3 years ago, has been taking his medication consistently, and his test results have shown no detectable virus for over a year. From a medical standpoint, he's doing everything right. Personality-wise, Victor seems like a decent guy. He's punctual for appointments, asks intelligent questions about his condition. He works in marketing for some tech startup, seems financially stable, always well-dressed. Here's where things get weird, and I'm still not sure if I'm being paranoid or if my gut instincts are trying to tell me something important. 2 weeks ago, Victor came in for his routine quarterly follow-up. Everything medically looked perfect, and he seemed in good spirits, too. But as I was updating his electronic health records, a text notification came through his phone, which was placed on the table. The sound made me glance over without really thinking about it. The contact name was just E, and the message preview showed something like, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Miss you already." Now, I'm not normally a nosy person, and patients' personal lives aren't my business unless they affect their health. But Victor immediately flipped the phone face down and got this almost guilty expression, quickly changing the subject back to his lab results. This was weird because Victor's usually pretty open about his dating life. In previous visits, he's mentioned he's actively dating. Always asks appropriate questions about safe sex practices and disclosure protocols, which I appreciate as his physician. So, why the secrecy about this particular relationship? Fast forward to last Tuesday night. I'm at home watching some Netflix show. Emily's curled up next to me with her laptop, supposedly working on some marketing proposals for her freelance clients. When her phone buzzes with a text, she literally jumps like she's been electrocuted. I see her quickly swipe the notification away, but not before I catch a glimpse of the contact name. V, just the letter V. My stomach dropped through the floor. The coincidence was too specific to ignore. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid, that lots of people have contacts saved as single letters. But something about Emily's reaction was all wrong. And it's not just this time. Emily's been different lately, too. Working late more often, always has detailed explanations for where she's been that somehow feel rehearsed. She's distracted during conversations, protective of her phone in ways she never used to be. I'm a scientist by training. I believe in evidence-based decision-making, not paranoid speculation. But the pattern-matching part of my brain is screaming that something's wrong here. The timing, the secretive behavior, the fact that my patient has a mysterious contact named E, and my wife has an equally mysterious contact named V. The worst part, if my suspicions are correct, Emily might have no idea about Victor's HIV status. Patient confidentiality means I can't just ask him about it. And I certainly can't warn her without violating HIPAA regulations 6 ways to Sunday. I could literally lose my medical license. But Victor knows his status. If he's not disclosing to sexual partners, that's not just unethical. It's potentially criminal under Arizona law. I haven't confronted anyone yet because I need to be absolutely certain before I blow up my marriage over what could be an elaborate series of coincidences. But Reddit, I'm going freaking crazy here. I barely slept last night. I keep running scenarios in my head during patient consultations. How do I even handle this situation? Has anyone dealt with something remotely similar? I feel like I'm trapped between my duty as a physician and my rights as a husband, and there's no good path forward that doesn't risk destroying everything. Edit. To suggesting I hire a private investigator, I've considered it. But PI work takes time I might not have if there's actual HIV exposure happening. Update 1. The responses to my original post were mixed, but many of you encouraged me to gather more information before acting. Well, I followed that advice, and I really wish I hadn't. Before I get into what happened, I want to address some questions from the comments. Yes, I know HIV transmission rates are relatively low, especially with an undetectable viral load. But relatively low risk isn't the same as no risk. And the issue here isn't just medical. Last Saturday, Emily told me she was going out with her college friend Sarah for dinner and drinks. She left around 6 p.m., looking more put together than she usually does for casual friend hangouts. Said she'd be back by 11, maybe midnight at the latest. Around 7:30, I drove to the restaurant she'd mentioned. Emily's car wasn't in the parking lot. I called the restaurant. They didn't have any reservations under Emily's name or Sarah's. I even described Emily to the hostess, who confirmed no one matching my description had been seated that evening. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, feeling like a complete stalker, running through possibilities. Maybe they'd changed venues last minute. Maybe I'd misheard the restaurant name. Maybe I was being a paranoid husband who needed therapy more than detective work. That's when I spotted them. Emily and Victor walking out of the Marriott lobby together about 2 blocks from where I was parked. She was laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his arm. They stopped next to a silver Lexus, and Victor pulled Emily close for a kiss that lasted way too long. 7 years of marriage, and I'm watching my wife make out with my patient in a freaking hotel parking lot. I drove home and sat in my driveway for almost 2 hours trying to figure out what the hell to do next. When Emily came home around 11:30, she acted completely normal. Told me all about her dinner with Sarah, how the food was amazing, showed me a selfie she'd apparently taken in the restaurant bathroom earlier, probably as alibi cover, and went through her usual bedtime routine like nothing had happened. The next few days were absolutely surreal. I kept going to work, seeing patients, maintaining my professional demeanor, but internally I was falling apart. Tuesday, Victor came in for an unscheduled visit because he was experiencing some minor side effects from his medication. Looking at him across my desk, knowing what I knew, was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I maintained appropriate manner, addressed his concerns thoroughly, but inside I was simultaneously furious and terrified. The whole appointment felt like an out-of-body experience. Yesterday morning, I made my first decision. I went to our hospital's employee health clinic and requested a complete STI panel, including HIV testing. The rapid HIV test came back negative within 20 minutes, but I'm still waiting for the follow-up lab results to confirm. I also asked for tests on hepatitis and general blood work. If I'd been exposed to anything, I wanted a complete record. I also couldn't just confront Emily without understanding the full scope of potential health implications. I'm scheduling a routine checkup for both Emily and me next week. I'm going to suggest we both get comprehensive health screenings as part of our annual physicals. She might think it's weird timing, but it's the only way I can think of to get her tested without revealing what I know yet. Victor has a follow-up appointment scheduled for next Thursday. I'm honestly not sure how I'm going to handle seeing him again. Professional ethics require me to continue providing him appropriate medical care regardless of personal circumstances. But personally, I want to throw him out of my office and report him to the state health department. This is the most messed up situation I've ever been in. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Writing this out helps me process the insanity. Edit to clear things up. Yes, I know there's medication you can take right after possible exposure. It works best in the first 3 days, but it can still help for a little while after that. The problem is, I don't know how long she's been seeing him too, or when we could have been at risk. Update 2. I need to get this out, because I honestly don't know how to process what happened today. This is probably going to be long. First, my HIV test results came back negative, which was a relief I can't even begin to describe. But that relief was immediately overshadowed by what came next. I managed to convince Emily to come in for our routine checkups yesterday afternoon. I scheduled us both at the same time so it wouldn't seem suspicious. Emily was resistant at first, saying she felt fine and didn't need any tests done. But I played the, "We're both getting older and should be more proactive about our health card." Mentioned how my colleague just found out he had high cholesterol at 35 and wished he'd caught it earlier. Emily eventually agreed, though she seemed nervous about the whole thing. I asked for a full round of tests, not just the regular checkup stuff like blood sugar and cholesterol, but also a complete STI screen. To the lab tech, I explained we were just being thorough since it had been over 2 years since our last full physical, which was true. You're listening to Whisper Wire, where silence holds power and stories carry truth. If this journey has already pulled you in, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Every click keeps these real Reddit stories alive and helps our whispers travel further than we ever imagined. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Your voice matters here. We read every single one, and sometimes your words inspire the very next story we tell. So stay with us. Because just like in life, the most powerful moments are often whispered in the middle, not just at the end. I told Emily the results would take 3 or 4 days to come back, which bought me time to figure out how to handle whatever we found. She seemed relieved to have it over with, and suggested we grab dinner at that new Italian place near our house. Dinner was surreal. Emily was more talkative than she'd been in weeks, asking about my patients, telling me about some new project proposal she was working on. For a moment, I almost convinced myself that maybe I'd been wrong about everything. But then her phone buzzed during dessert, and I watched her face change. The same secretive smile, the same quick glance around to make sure I wasn't paying attention, the same protective way she held the phone while texting back. The illusion shattered instantly. This morning, I got the call that changed everything. Emily's HIV test came back positive. I sat in my office staring at the lab report for probably 20 minutes, not really processing what I was seeing. Seeing those results in black and white made everything real, in a way that even witnessing their affair hadn't. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about Emily's life, her future, her health. Whatever anger I felt toward her was immediately overshadowed by genuine medical concern. I called her around noon and asked her to meet me at the hospital this afternoon. I told her we needed to discuss some of her test results, that there were some abnormalities we needed to address. She went quiet on the phone for several seconds, then asked in this small, scared voice if everything was okay. I told her we'd talk when she got there. When Emily arrived at 3:30, I could see in her face that she knew something was seriously wrong. She was pale, kept fidgeting with her purse strap, avoided making direct eye contact. I've delivered difficult diagnosis hundreds of times, but telling your own wife that she's HIV positive is something no medical school prepares you for. I closed the door to my office and gestured for her to sit down. Emily, we need to talk about your lab results. She sat on the edge of the chair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Matthew, you're scaring me. What's wrong?" I placed the lab report on the desk between us, turned so she could read it. "Your HIV screening test came back positive." She stared at the paper for what felt like forever, her eyes moving back and forth across the lab values like she was trying to decode a foreign language. Then she looked up at me with tears starting to form. "How is this possible, Matthew? I don't understand. How could I have HIV?" That's when I lost it. All the professional composure I've been maintaining for weeks just freaking cracked. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of them at the Marriott. Victor Ramirez. Does that name ring a bell? The look on her face cycled through confusion, recognition, horror, and something like panic. "Oh, God. Oh, God." "Matthew, I can explain. It's not what you think. He's my patient, Emily." I cut her off. "He's HIV positive. Has been for 3 years." She went completely white. I thought she might pass out right there in my office chair. "He never told me that. He said he was clean, that he'd been tested recently. We use protection most of the time, but not always because he said." She trailed off, probably realizing how that sounded. "Most of the time isn't enough, Emily. And he lied to you about his status." What followed was one of the ugliest conversations of my life. She broke down completely, sobbing and trying to explain the affair. How it started 3 months ago when she met him at some networking event. How he was charming and attentive in ways that made her feel special. How it was supposed to just be a one-time thing, but kept happening. How sorry she was. How much she regretted everything. I watched her fall apart with the same detached observation I'd use on a patient in crisis. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but the husband in me felt nothing but cold fury. "It was supposed to be just once," she gasped, "but he kept texting, kept saying he understood me in ways you never did." I know how pathetic that sounds now. I pulled out my prescription pad and clicked my pen. Emily stopped mid-sentence, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. "I need to ask you some medical questions now." My voice was flat, clinical. "When was your last sexual contact with Victor? Are you seriously taking notes right now?" She looked horrified. "Answer the question, Emily." Her face crumpled again. 2 weeks ago, last Saturday, the night I told you I had dinner with Sarah. I wrote down the date. Frequency of contact over the past 3 months. Matthew, please don't treat me like one of your patients." I looked up from my notepad, meeting her eyes directly, trying to control my anger. "You are one of my patients now. Just answer the go-damn question." The way she looked at me after that still haunted me. Throughout our 3 years of marriage, I'd never once raised my voice at her. But at that moment, she stared at me like I was some complete stranger. Looking so small, so vulnerable, so scared, I spent the next hour explaining what being HIV positive really meant, what treatment could look like, and what her future might hold, with the right care. She listened through tears, asking questions between sobs about how long she could live, if she might pass it on, if she could ever have children. "Will I die from this?" she asked. "No, Emily. With today's treatments, HIV is something people can live with for a full normal life. It just means taking daily medication and having regular checkups." "Will you be my doctor?" I almost laughed at the absurdity of the question. "No, Emily. I can't be your doctor. I can't continue to be your husband either." She dropped to her knees beside my desk chair, actually grabbed my hands with shaking fingers. "Matthew, please. I'll end it completely. I'll never see him again. I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Just please don't throw away 3 years of marriage." I pulled my hands away and stood up, putting distance between us. "Emily, You have HIV. Do you understand what that means? You have a chronic, incurable disease because you decided I wasn't enough for you and went sleeping with another man instead. Her face crumpled. But you said people live normal lives with treatment. You said I said a lot of things as your doctor just now, but as your husband, you chose to risk both our lives for what? Excitement. Attention. Was it worth it, Emily? She was sobbing so hard she could barely speak. I never meant for this to happen. I was lonely. You worked so much. And he made me feel stop. I held up my hand, my voice deadly calm. Don't you dare blame me for your choices. Don't you dare make this my fault. I started packing my briefcase. Emily watched me like I was dismantling her world, which I suppose I was. I'll help you get connected with Dr. Martinez for HIV treatment. I'll make sure your insurance covers everything properly. But I'm staying at the Hampton Inn tonight, and you should probably call a lawyer. Matthew, please don't leave me to deal with this alone. Her voice was barely a whisper. I paused at the door, briefcase in hand, and looked back at her, still kneeling by my desk. You weren't alone, Emily. You were with Victor. Maybe you should call him. She flinched like I'd slapped her. What about Victor? Are you going to do anything about him? I looked at her, then turned to leave without answering. That's the question I'm wrestling with now. Victor lied to my wife about his HIV status. In Arizona, knowingly exposing someone to HIV without telling them can be prosecuted as a serious felony. But he's also my patient, and I can't just ignore the professional obligations that come with that. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with the hospital's chief medical officer and the ethics board. I've also reached out to a lawyer to figure out what my reporting duties are and whether this could lead to criminal charges. Emily has called me 6 times since I left the office. I'm not ready to talk yet. I'm staying at the hotel tonight, trying to process everything that's happened. My marriage is over. My wife has a life-altering diagnosis, and my patient potentially committed a felony. I never imagined my medical knowledge would be what revealed my wife's affair and possibly saved my own life. Final update. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I wanted to provide closure for everyone who's been following this nightmare. Emily's confirmatory HIV test came back positive as expected. She's now seeing Dr. Martinez, one of the best HIV doctors in Arizona, and has begun treatment right away. Her response to treatment has been excellent so far. Dr. Martinez expects her to achieve undetectable status within the next 2 or 3 months. From a purely medical standpoint, her prognosis is very good. My own follow-up testing has all been negative. I've been tested 3 times in the past month. No indication of HIV exposure, and my other STI panels have been clear. I've started taking PRP as a precautionary measure since I work in healthcare and want additional protection going forward. As for legal and professional developments, this was the most complex part to navigate. I sat down with the hospital's ethics board, our legal team, and even reached out to the Arizona Medical Board. Everyone agreed on one thing. By hiding his HIV status from a sexual partner, Victor crossed into criminal territory and created a public health risk that outweighed normal patient confidentiality. I filed a report and provided every medical documentation requested with appropriate legal permissions and court orders. The process took 2 weeks of paperwork and legal reviews, but everything was handled properly. Victor is now under criminal investigation for knowingly transmitting HIV, which carries penalties up to 12 years in prison. Victor is no longer under my care. I haven't spoken to him since the investigation started, but I've been told through hospital administration that he has hired a criminal defense attorney and is refusing to cooperate with the health department's contact tracing. Emily and I are officially divorced. The papers were finalized last Friday. The process was surprisingly straightforward. We didn't fight over assets or custody since we don't have children, and Emily didn't contest anything in the settlement. I think she understood that fighting would be pointless and expensive given the circumstances. We split our shared assets 50-50. She kept her car and personal belongings, and I kept the house. She's living with her sister Jennifer now, and seems to be managing her diagnosis well. We've had a few conversations about logistics, but nothing personal. I'm not ready for that level of conversation, and honestly, I'm not sure I ever will be. The hardest part has been dealing with friends and family reactions. Some people have been incredibly supportive, like my brother Mike, who flew out from Denver just to check on me, and my colleague Ashley, who's been covering some of my more challenging cases while I've been processing everything. Others seem to think I should have handled it differently. Emily's mother called me last week to say I was being heartless for divorcing Emily when she's dealing with a serious medical diagnosis. A few mutual friends have suggested I should have tried marriage counseling, or that I was somehow at fault for working too many hours and not paying enough attention to my marriage. But here's what they don't understand. Emily didn't just have an affair. The betrayal goes beyond typical infidelity. It's about fundamental honesty, respect for both our health and basic human decency. Some people have asked if I regret how I handled it, if I should have just confronted Emily immediately, instead of gathering evidence first. Absolutely not. If I just confronted them emotionally, Victor might have had time to coach Emily on what to say. She might have refused testing out of fear, and there would be no legal accountability for his criminal behavior. I'm taking a 6-week leave of absence starting next Monday. My department head has been incredibly understanding about the situation. My patient panel is being covered by colleagues, and I've properly transferred care for all ongoing cases. I've received job offers from former colleagues in Seattle, Austin, and Charlotte. I'm seriously considering relocating. Phoenix holds too many painful memories now, and a fresh start might be exactly what I need. Victor's criminal case is still pending, but I understand the prosecutor's office is treating it seriously. Emily seems to be adjusting to her new reality, with appropriate medical care and family support. I'm focusing on my own healing and figuring out what comes next. Time to start the next chapter of my life. This was Whisper Wire, where silence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate revenge. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and join the journey. Because tomorrow's whisper might just become the story of your life. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe my channel. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments.